I was brought in early on, the first writer to work on the project, when Paramount called and said we optioned this terrific book by Max Brooks, which, when I read it, was just astonishing. The book is so smart and so elegant, and what made sense to me in looking at that narrative, which is basically a series of interviews done after the fact, to say, okay, for purposes of a film, an investigation, what might make sense is to have a character who was that very same investigator. I created the character of Jerry Lane, gave him a family, and assigned him the job of trying to figure out what happened after the fact and then during the fact for the course of the movie. Because in every film there's a patient zero, and every virus there's a patient zero, and that will tell you how it got started, and I can tell you, therefore, how to stop it. So for me, the great challenge and the opportunity was to take this wonderful, elegant book and turn it into a detective story. In the World War Z structure, people are dying left, right, and center. We have to protect those who can then help us rebuild after the fact. So you have to make a determination, who do we save first? And that's a hard decision to have to make. The cold equations involved in that decision are based on hierarchy, political structure, who's important, who can save us. And to have that manifested in the film raises a lot of good social and political questions of who would you save? Do you save congressmen or do you let them go? I think the mood now would be let them go. So it's a cool aspect to explore in the course of the current story. Who would you save? And for the audience to consider, if it was your choice, who would you put on that boat? When I first came onto the project, I knew that we had to start off that script with the attack, to see it in process, and see that going as far out of control as humanly possible. So starting off in that motif where you begin an action, you begin with an attack, people don't know what's going on, they have to get out of town fast, is a way of catching up the audience on a visceral emotional level. Then you can dial back and sort of start laying in, okay, what happened, why, and how. In the original book, there is no narrator, there is no main character. They're just a series of interviews conducted by a faceless person with government leaders, ordinary people, military folks. And I thought, okay, the most logical approach to the story is to create that character who did those interviews and give us a point of view within the United Nations, which makes sense to be able to go around the world to investigate this, and give him a family, and give them, kids, and let us take this huge event, because people have a hard time understanding huge, big, worldwide planetary events, but a family in jeopardy you can understand. You take this big story and you make it small and see it writ small on one small family, because you can identify with that. What I think Brad brings to the character of Jerry is a humanity and a groundedness and a likability and a strength that the character really needs. Brad is the kind of guy who is just so level-headed and so honest and sincere. And I think that really informs his performance as Jerry Lane. You root for him because he's just a regular guy. And the cool thing is he's not just that in the role, he actually is that in real life. I think that really comes through.